Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Round Robin. I am your host, Tracy Preston, along with Christine Mulligan, Nina Mulligan, and of course, my husband, Todd Preston. Hey, everyone.
Hey, howdy.
Hello, everybody.
Today, we will be discussing the show we did in Season 4, Episode 3, Four Missing Girls. Leslie Allen Williams took, raped, stabbed, and also did some necrophilia with these girls before he buried them. He was sentenced to a life of imprisonment in 1992. So, a little backstory, just as a reminder, Leslie's mother, when he was just a little boy, she was a prostitute turning tricks in her home with her kids there, and her husband would sit in the closet and kind of watch the whole thing go down. Leslie was one of 4 children, and this kid was in trouble pretty much from the word go, right? So as soon as he kind of hit the pre-teeny stuff, he was like doing some B&Es. So he knows the system quite well. In 1962, Leslie's mother married a man from California, so she moved and took her 2 kids. Now, originally she had 4 children, 2 girls from a previous marriage, and then she was married again, had Leslie and his brother. They got divorced. She took up to California, took the 2 boys. I don't know what the heck happened to the girls. Anyway, that marriage didn't even make it a year. And when Leslie's mother, was seeking a divorce, the paperwork, all that 9 yards, that current husband tracked her down, shot and killed her. His name was Lyle, and then he turned the gun on himself. And Leslie and his brother in California with their mother were then turned over to their mother's parents. So they were back in Michigan. He has a big history of kidnapping, sexual assault, which he had served 7 years prior. His release, multiple offenses, in and out, in and out, in and out. Now, the reason he got out the last time was his therapist in prison had written a letter of support for Leslie, and that is what got him parole, as he was a model prisoner. Probably because he knew how to play the game of manipulation. I mean, he's been in and out of institutions his entire life, and he knew just what to do, what to say, how to act, and how to play that game. On May 24th, 1992, he abducted a young woman out of the cemetery, and this was an abduction that was witnessed. There was a couple in the cemetery, and they're like, oh my God, we need to go for help. And luckily for that girl that was in the trunk is that as soon as that couple pulled out of the cemetery, there just so happened to be a police officer right there. So Leslie's car went zinging out of the cemetery. It was exactly the car that the couple had explained to the officer. So he tracked him down. Leslie kind of went off the road, tried running away, but the cop got him, slapped some cuffs on him. And that's when he heard all the commotion in the trunk. And when he opened it up, there was a young woman in there that was close to suffocation from a zip tie cuff that was wrapped around her neck, and her hands were also zip tied behind her back. In that trunk was also a gun, a knife, and some more of those zip ties. Now, when I watched a show on this, Oprah Winfrey had Leslie on her show via teleprompter, and one of the questions she asked him was, hey, what do you do after you kill someone? And his response is, well, you just let it go. It was Leslie's ex-girlfriend that led detectives to a burial site of a kitten. So Leslie had a girlfriend. She had a kitten. It just all of a sudden came up missing. When she asked him about it, he's like, yep, I did it. I killed it. Do you want to see where I buried it? And so, when all this came out that he was arrested and this and that, she called the police department, told him this story, and said, I can take you to the burial site of my kitten. Who knows? Maybe this is like his place. So sure enough, that's where they started looking and found one of the bodies of the missing girls. Then they also went through his home, found a trinket box, and lots of little souvenirs in there. And one souvenir that was in there belonged to Cami Villanueva. It was her ring. So once they showed him that, and he was like, okay, here we go. Let's confess. Because they had asked him all about this stuff. He's like, nope, don't know her. Never saw that girl. Never saw that girl. And now all of a sudden, I guess he's just like, well, let's do it. I'm caught. Let's roll. Also, right after he had gotten out of prison, right? So he's on parole. And that's kind of how he ran into Cami Villanueva, is he worked at like a party store. And it was a party store that Cami would visit. And so I think he kind of set his sights on her and started following her because he knew where she lived. He abducted her from her home, peeping in the windows. Now, the other girl, Cynthia Jones, who was 15, she was with her boyfriend at the park, and that was just an opportunity. He was prowling, he was hanging out, so that was an opportunity. And then we have Michelle Urban, who was 16, and Melissa Urban, who was 14. And those two sisters loved to go for walks. And again, it just, well, no, he was actually watching. So these girls, after dinner, every night would go on the same walk. They'd be gone for like an hour and a half or so. And so one night he was just ready to do it. Opportunity was right and he struck. And I just find that one, they're all disturbing, but that one bothers me the most. The two sisters, right? So I don't know what he did. He must have zip tied one of them. Maybe he zip tied one around a tree just like he did Cynthia Jones's boyfriend.
Well, it puts the sisters in a bad situation too, because if he has one sister and he's got a hold of her, and he's telling the other sister, "Don't you fucking make a noise, don't nothing, or I'm gonna hurt your sister." What do? You're gonna be as quiet as possible. You are going to agree to anything because you don't want anything to happen to your sister. So it was just a bad case scenario, where these two young girls are being total compliant because for fear of what's going to happen to their best friend, essentially.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's just so crazy to me how awful that must have been, knowing like, oh my God, he's got my sister. Because initially when I was doing the show, because we don't know if this girl was zip tied around a tree so she couldn't go anywhere. I mean, that would kind of make sense that he would do that, make it so she couldn't run. Mm-hmm. But even if she wasn't, I mean, what would you do? Could you run knowing that your sister something bad was happening to her? Like, what would you do?
Yeah, I don't think I could. I don't think I could leave my sister.
It's crazy. So this guy is doing life.
Like with the boyfriend that he zip tied to the tree. And then, if I remember correctly, when we first talked about it in the podcast originally, didn't we discuss how they were going after him for it for a minute?
Yeah, exactly. They're like, what's up with this kid?
Yeah, they weren't buying a story,
Mm-hmm. They didn't believe it until they went out to the woods where he was. And he's like, this is the tree. And they're like, oh, yep, okay. There's a zip ties broken. How'd this kid break those? Because these are professional grade zip ties. These are like what the police would have, what they would carry. And then as he's like, they went that way. And as I started looking, they're like, oh, shit, this happened. Because there was a big footprint with a smaller footprint next to it, walking in that direction.
And then they matched the boy's footprint up with the man's footprint, and they clearly did not match. Leslie had much larger feet.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, I'm just going to add it in here, too. I know we've talked on a couple of our podcasts. Michigan is really big on footprints.
They really are, and I think maybe other states should follow. Because that shit works out.
Well, I think the one thing that stands out is there's so much outdoor area in Michigan, backwoods, that kind of stuff, So I think footprints are one of the clues that are maybe the most easiest to find, where if you're living in an urban, area, you're not gonna see those footprints. On sidewalks and pavement.
I get it, and I applaud it, and I respect it, because it's like a nod to the American Indian way. I mean, that's how the original trackers would be detectives, is based on footprints and broken branches. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right on, for sure.
That's the original American detective work right there.
Put your ear to the ground and listen for the buffalo.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I'm so happy that this guy's just going to rot away for the rest of his life. And that's what drives me insane about a lot of the crimes that we've talked about, where they have people like, no, you are a danger to women. You should never be out again. And then sure as shit, boom, they're out. And what do? They escalate, or they just continue.
Right.
Yeah, because that was the case with this guy
Mm-hmm.
for a hot minute for it. And then came out and did even more horrific things.
Exactly.
See, I kind of theorize. I think I think he kind of wanted to get caught, because once he did get caught, got nailed with the first murder, he totally spilled his beans about everything else.
Yeah. Very nonchalant, like the, what was that girl? The butterfly girl. Do you guys remember her name? Remember the People Burgers?
We all just know about her as the butterfly lady because you can't get those butterflies out of your head anymore.
I know. It really scarred me a little bit.
Yeah, a lot of these stories are very scarring.
Mm-hmm.
Very much, Trace.
I know.
Okay, it was the Chris Reagan story.
Yeah, it was a Chris Reagan story. But
I just cannot remember her name, though.
I don't think she deserves to have her name out there. We'll just call her the butterfly lady.
Yep.
Which, by the way, you're kind of ruining butterflies for a lot of people, but whatever.
It's ruined for me, so there.
I know. We see like people with butterflies decorating their houses. We're like, how many people they kill?
Take those down. That's not good. The whimsicalness of a butterfly is completely tainted for me.
Right.
I can't do it. I used to like them, but I'm over it. All I can think about is that chick, and she was bad. Bad news bears.
Yeah, but I mean, butterflies do mean, spiritual kind of things for a lot of people. And essentially, it was very unfair of that lady to steal that from the rest of society, because it's really an endearing thing for a lot of people. Like, they think of butterflies as their past loved ones when they see a butterfly, or they get a tattoo of a butterfly in remembrance of a loved one. So that lady actually, she's the idiot, because butterflies are beautiful and they're delicate, which is just like human lives are delicate. So she actually applied it correctly. It was just done in malice, which is what the hell you like to talk about.
Just her own twisted version of it. Yep.
Yeah. She's an asshole for ruining that for me.
I think what's crazy is that, not that this necessarily could have been preventable, because I feel like this guy went through some crazy shit as a kid. Seeing your mom be a prostitute, I'm sure, is a whole nother level. But then with the dad sitting right there, like, ew. And then he had sisters, but then nobody knows what happened to them. And then his mom was murdered. I mean, that's crazy. But when he started acting out and doing the B&Es and all this, where the hell is, like, some intervention? Like, why didn't someone say, what is going on here that's making this kid do this sort of thing? But then again, I guess he was growing up in the 60s, right? 70s or something?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, well, let's see. He committed these murders in late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
He was, in 1992 is when he was found guilty. It was pretty swift justice as far as that's concerned. But I agree. I mean, what kind of let's put it there. What kind of a neighborhood were they even living in where their mom's a prostitute and turning tricks in the house?
Like, why isn't, CPS involved or something?
Yeah, I was kind of thinking the same thing.
Showing signs. If he kept getting arrested for, like, bad behavior comes from somewhere. It's not like he was spawned and he just came out the womb being a devil. You know what I mean? Like, that's cultivated. So nobody thought to go, why is this young kid, when he was younger, acting out and doing all these sorts of things?
Yeah, and you want to hear another huge fail is in the show, we had talked about the two younger sisters. Now, the neighborhood kids, I don't know if they were boys and girls, but they had seen, so windows must have been open, unless they were doing it outside, but they'd seen the daughters giving this stepdad of theirs a blowjob. So what in the hell happened with that? So if they took the girls, which I'm sure they did, why didn't they take the boys? Get them all out of there.
Yep. Automatically, all those kids should have been pulled right out of there.
And it was a different time, and unfortunately, when child sexual abuse was a thing, they instinctively always went with remove the daughters, but the sons are fine, thinking as if sons weren't sexually abused. Because as a society, we overlooked that for a really long time. In the 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s, it wasn't until probably mid 2000s that we as a collective society started acknowledging that little boys were being sexually abused too.
Well, look at the police didn't even believe the kid that he had been tied to a tree.
Right.
Probably because he was a boy.
Yeah.
Like, why would he make that up? Why would you go to the police and say, I've been tied to a tree and this is crazy, and the police not believe you because you're, what, a boy?
Well, you're a boy and your girlfriend is murdered now.
Right. Well, I mean, it doesn't. It kind of reminds me. Look, I'm robbing back to Chris Reagan's story, but just like the detective Liz Frizzo, when she involved Michigan State Police, and because they needed help, they just didn't have many people on the force, and they were like, "Oh, it's his ex-girlfriend, the one who reported him missing," and she's like, "No, dude, no, I'm not going after her because you have to learn how to read people." You know what I mean? So you've got this kid, this disheveled kid. He's completely fraught with fear and how scared he must have been, like not only what happened to him, but where's his girlfriend? Like you couldn't look at this kid and figure out that the 16-year-old boy is not making this up.
Right.
Yeah, well, I don't want to, not credit some people with their acting abilities, because there are some people that will tell a torrid tale and they will sell it very convincingly and be as evil as the day is long. So I don't blame them for at least taking a look at him. I don't want to say that I blame them for that, because they should have. No stone should go unturned when you're talking about missing people in general, no matter what sex they were. So I don't want to harp too much on how they harped on him. I just pointed that out earlier to say, like, they still didn't look for this guy, in that instant. They went with the easiest first, which is fine. I don't really want to discredit that. And, detective work, it's a process, right? Nothing that I know of. I'm not a detective. I'm just a nurse, But my thing is the society portion of it, going back to why he was left with his mother. It was an impoverished situation, obviously. Like you said, they were living in a neighborhood where the mom's turning tricks and neighbors are watching the kids give their stepdad blowjobs. You know what I mean? Obviously, it paints a picture, not mid-class suburbia, I'm thinking. Just a guesstimate, but I'm probably accurate. There was a fail in the school system. Like, this boy was definitely showing signs of not conforming in school. We don't hear anything about any of that. Then he goes to prison the first time, and okay, so yes, you said that happened readily and quickly and speedy justice and all that. But then they let him out, and then what? Then they just let him out, and obviously, we have those laws in place about sexual offenders being on lists, which, I don't want to ruffle any feathers, but that being a blanketed kind of thing, I don't know if I agree with that either, but I do understand its validity, because we know where they are or whatever in the community when you have children to protect. But that wasn't the case for him, because it didn't matter where he lived. It was where he was working, which gave him access to the next victim, right?
Yeah.
He wasn't living or working where he found the other two victims. He just happened to find a place where he saw two girls walking by on the regular. So he was like, let me just chill out here, because it's a regular thing, which unfortunately, that's another thing that we don't teach our children, both females and males, when they're little. If you're going to have habitual, scheduled happenings in your life, you need to be more mindful, because complacency is a large thing in habits.
Well, I think we are teaching them that now, because people literally post every second of their day, and they put all the information on there for any kind of stalker.
Yeah.
To figure you out, what your routine is, what your favorite copy, even if they don't know. Like before, they had to hide in the bushes.
Yeah.
And wait to figure out your routine. Now they just got to scroll through your feed. Oh, she likes this coffee shop on this block and seems to go there about every Tuesday. And then you just take them out from that point. So I think it's even easier now for people to find.
Yeah, but to your point, maybe we are training them a little bit better now that they're very aware that everybody knows their whereabouts. So it's actually easier for people to come and snatch you.
Yeah, exactly.
I wanted to give some props to Tracy. Going back to the Chris Reagan story, you remembered the name of the good guy, but couldn't remember the name of the bad guy in the story. And I think that's how it should be.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, see, I got to chuck him in the fuck it bucket. I don't like you.
Yep.
You're bad. Thanks, hon.
You're welcome.
Good point, Todd.
Yep. And I couldn't agree with you more, Christine, is pattern, pattern, pattern. Break up your patterns. Because you never do know who's watching you.
And Nina's got a great point, too. Quit posting everything you do.
Mm-hmm.
You're making yourself a target.
Well, yeah, and if that person lives in your neighborhood, they're like, oh, wait, I know where that house is.
Yep.
I like little girls, or I like little boys. See, I don't trust anybody, and I don't care what neighborhood. You could be living in the wealthiest neighborhood.
Oh, absolutely.
Sometimes those are the worst.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I only said about the impoverished neighborhood in this case because they don't have a lot of services. The schools don't pay attention to them. And, unfortunately, in America, the poorer you are, the less access you have to assistance. So in this evil dude's case, yes, he was evil. He probably had a slew of dissociative disorders that are undiagnosed because of his childhood. But he never got diagnosed, so he never got help. He never learned right from wrong, essentially, because he lived the life that he lived. And then he turned into what he turned into. And unfortunately, sometimes the help is too little too late. So there's no help for some people because they waited too long to get helped. And unfortunately, the more impoverished you are, especially in this country, but I think it goes everywhere. I think that's a global effect. Is the more impoverished you are, the less access you have to health, education, and food and water, the more likely you are to turn out not so great, unfortunately, which is a horrible thing, which makes me one of those fruitcakes that thinks that things should be a little bit more even in the world. But what the hell do I know?
Yeah, I'm with you. And as you were saying that, I'm sitting here thinking, okay, like I'm picturing a neighborhood that he's possibly living in. And, let's just say when CPS had come in and swoop in and get those girls, they should have gotten those boys. But what kind of help could he have gotten? Could it have changed him? And because they don't come from money, what kind of state institutions could they put this kid in? Because I'm talking that's deep-seated therapy. I don't think he'd ever get it.
No, he'd never get it because he wouldn't have the insurance to cover the institutionalization.
Right.
Well, he did, though. I mean, shoot. The state.
The only
what do they have?
The only institution.
Orphanages? I mean, that's never a good thing. Boys' home. Haven't never heard of anybody coming out of a boys' home that got like the Nobel Prize.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's not likely to happen. That's the unfortunate thing.
Yeah.
Is those that need the help the most do not get it.
Right, and they just keep swirling down that shithole toilet they're living in and the chaos that they're creating.
Sometimes the foster homes are just as bad as the home they came from.
That's true.
Unfortunately.
That is a heartbreaking truth for me. I really hate talking about foster care because on one hand, you hear great. I know some people that are foster parents that they are better parents than I could ever have been any day over, regardless of money or stature. You know what I'm saying? Like that is irrelevant. They're just great parents. They love their foster children. They're great. They are the bee's knees and they deserve their weight in gold. But then you hear about the people that just do it for a paycheck and they don't think of these kids as even human beings. They think of them as a means to a paycheck. And it makes my blood boil and I want to kill every one of them. Like I just want to murder them. Like if I'm ever going to go on a crusade, it's going to be on the people that prey on children for paychecks.
Agreed. Right. Shoot, there was a story, guys, there was actually a story in DeWitt, 2 years ago, hon?
Yeah. Yep.
Christian family. Oh, they were so wonderful, involved in the community. They were torturing these children that they fostered because they were doing exactly what you said, Christine, collecting money, right? Didn't they have them locked up in the basement? Horrible shit.
It's a twisted system. We've talked about it on a lot of our podcasts. we've mentioned this whole topic when you talk about how you think that elementary schools should have counselors and all that, and then I go into, well, that's a great idea, but where are we getting the money, blah blah blah, and it's a whole barrel of facts, right? It's never just one thread, one problem. It's always a pile of complicities, a pile of complications, right? The thing is I don't know how to be politically correct on this because I'm going to make enemies right now, Trace. This is what's going to happen. But this is the whole point to socialized medicine. And I don't mean to ruffle anybody's feathers. I'm just a nurse, who's worked in the system and sees how it works. I don't know. I may know a little bit about some things, but I probably know a lot about nothing. I get it. I don't have the answers. I'm not a Nobel laureate, you know what I mean? But ultimately, even when we're talking about murderers, we're talking about could we have prevented them from being murderers had they had equitable chance at being sussed out before they became a problem.
I'm with you.
And I'm talking about sussing people out and profiling people on what your brain tells us, because they have all those theories too. And we've seen all those horrific futuristic movies like, if you have this trait, we're going to kill you off because you're bad for society and you're likely to commit murder. Not that kind of thing, but just giving everybody an equal fair shake and making sure everybody has the bare necessities of life, which is health, food, water, access to major anatomical human needs. If we just had a basic human needs baseline for everybody to get something, no matter what kind of house you lived in, whether you lived in a shack shanty or you live in a mansion, when you go to school, you get XYZ. And XYZ is breakfast, lunch, and some health.
Right, and mental health.
Yeah,
medical health.
Physical, mental health.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you. I'm still so pissed off that we don't have socialized medicine at this point. Germany had it back in the 40s, P.S.
Yeah.
Germany.
Yeah.
I know, but I don't want to get too political.
I know, it just makes me
political
nuts.
podcast because if it was, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not into the hate mail. I completely respect everybody's opinion, and I just ask that you respect mine. We don't got to fight about it. We don't got to debate. We're just talking about what we could do. What is one of the many things we could do to help hinder horrific crimes like this? And horrific crimes like this, killing of innocent young children for sexual deviance in his 30s when he did it in his 20s already. We could have stopped this. We could have done more instead of just institutionalizing him in prison one time and then thinking he paid his debt to society and let him out without diagnosing him with all of the litany of things that he most likely had.
Yeah, and the other thing that makes me absolutely insane is they thought he was the model parolee. He put on such a good show, right? Meanwhile, P.S., I'm killing girls. I'm snagging them out of cars. I'm I'm just walking in their houses and getting them. But I'm reporting in, hey, everything is A-okay.
All right, so you want to know where my twisted mind goes with that?
Mm-hmm.
Is was taught what to do. He learned how to do it exactly.
Mm-hmm.
We failed to teach him not to kill little girls.
Yep.
We taught him how to be a model parolee, the things that we wanted from him. We wanted him to be in line when he's supposed to be in line, to be ready to be called when he was being called, to be ready to stand there straight, to be ready to speak when spoken to. All of those things that make him a model parolee, show up when he needs to. We taught him all those things.
Yeah.
And he learned them and he did them.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes me actually even more angry in a weird way, because the things that we did teach him, he learned, and he did, and he followed through with. But we never taught him how to deal with his impulses. We never taught him how to rationalize his irrational thoughts. We never taught him right from wrong ever in his life. We as a society, I mean.
Agreed.
We as a society never helped him in those ways. And then we were shocked and appalled when he kept doing what he was doing. That is insanity.
Do you think, though, that somebody that far along in their life and with such violent criminal acts can ever really be taught anything new
Well, see,
or rehabilitated. I mean, I'm not saying, obviously, I'm sure there are some, but
that's the thing, is it's
violent crimes, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I don't think that you pull somebody back from the brink of psychopathy.
I don't know either, but where's the data on the evidence that they tried? Where's
No, we know they don't.
Exactly.
They don't rehabilitate.
So how are we ever going to know?
To go back into society, but then society doesn't let them back in anyway because we have all these laws that say they can't get jobs. So
right.
If a person can't get a job, how do you expect them to survive? So of course they're going to do what they already know how to do, which is easy money, which is usually criminal, and then they're back in the system again. So yeah, I think rehabilitation. Like I'm talking like Wayne Gacy people. I'm talking like, Jeffrey Dahmer. I'm talking Bill, what was his name? Ted Bundy. Are we really changing them? They're psychos.
I agree. But my point is, without equity in health, both physical and mental health, without equity in that, we're never going to know if we can make a difference. We're never going to even know.
I agree. I'm not debating that at all. I do think, though, at some point, especially when it's sexually violent acts, I'm all for medical castration.
Yeah.
100%.
Let's nip it in the bud.
Nip it in the balls, please.
Yes, it just kind of makes sense to me. Let's take away the problem, put you back into society.
You know what? Let's go one step further and take their hands away too.
You don't have balls.
Oh.
We're gonna take your balls.
You know what?
We're keeping
Todd
your
said
balls,
take the balls and the hands.
Yep.
I think someone in New York just did that. I think the DA in New York, she just passed a bill or something, or at least brought one to the whoever votes on that shit. I don't know. That's basically said that like you can get earlier parole if you choose medical castration.
Hey now.
Well, I guess if it's their choice.
It's the person's choice.
But the thing is that has been a thing. I don't really remember where I'm even pulling this innocuous brainworm that I have going on right now. But somewhere along the lines, castration, maybe it was in Africa or something. I know they did female castration, which was horrific, and that wasn't really that's not what I'm talking about. But somewhere they were doing castrations, but then it didn't hinder it. And I remember, I don't know, maybe I should do research on this before I just go throwing it out there. But it didn't stop them. And I'm remembering when I heard of this, I was like, yeah, because if they're evil, right? So whether they're going to use their phallic piece or they're going to use a bat or a bottle or whatever, they're still going to
take their hands
or their
too.
fingers or their hands. You know what I mean? They're still going to be able to inflict sexual pain on someone if that's what they choose to do. But it's not so much the physicality, medical necessity I'm talking about. It's the mental. If we had mental health equity out there from when every child is young, there would be records of flags. There would be a red flag record. Do you know what I'm saying? Like we would have some notion of the child's home life, dissociative disorders.
But that requires more attention, though, which is kind of why I like Finland's setup. They have the same teacher from the time that they're in kindergarten to the time that they graduate high school. And it's a class, and they grow up together. And so that teacher is able to provide the insight, having to get to know these kids as they grow up.
Yeah.
You can't do that when you have a class of 50 kids and you rotate and you have 300 students throughout the day.
Yeah.
How are you individually?
No, I agree.
You know what I'm saying? So like, there's so many fronts on how we course correct at this point. It's a long journey.
Well, that's why my program has to be instituted. So that these counselors, because it's the counselors, it's not just a session, they're actually teaching a class to where they get to know these children, get to know their home lives. It's not just having a counselor in school. It's actually it's a full-on class every year of your life.
Yeah, just like PE, you'd have physical education and you'd have mental education.
Or maybe you have like a mental health, like what do they call those? teachers, like people who are like assistants to the teacher. Most of the time it's for students who are like, need help physically doing schoolwork and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But what if like a parapsychologist in every classroom that just hung out in the classroom all day?
No,
observing?
I think Tracy's actually pulling the easiest thread, is because I don't know if all of our listeners out there even realize the reason why children do physical education in every grade in the United States is because we were prepping our boys, because back in the day, only boys went to school originally in public school, way back when the education system started. And then girls went, but, it wasn't like they weren't
like the 8th grade or something.
Yeah, they weren't treated the same. But little boys had to do physical education because we were preparing them for the military. Like, essentially, since kindergarten.
You have to fight for this country, son.
Right, exactly. So we were giving them physical education to prepare them for a life of being an American. So why don't we take that same very premise 100 and some odd years later and give them mental education to prepare them to be better for the global society?
Yeah, and I just came up with a therapy that I think would work. Hypnotherapy.
I don't know. There's a case down here where a principal actually was charged with 2 murders because he was doing hypnotherapy on his students without the parents' permission. Come to find out, these kids ended up committing suicide because he did not necessarily untrans them, I guess, or he taught them how to like mentally trans themselves. And then so like one person was like at a red light and then just fucking drove themselves off the bridge or some shit like that. Like
Really?
they just fucking snapped. Yeah. And
he was charged with that?
2 or 3 students died that he did this hypnotherapy on. And so yeah, it wasn't a good thing.
Was he trained?
I mean,
or did he take a class?
Sure that the person comes out of it, because anything at that point can trigger, and then you're in a hypnotic state and you have no idea what you're doing.
Yeah, he's like, if you see a red light.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Red now means go.
Red means drive off the road. Yeah, that program has to be monitored. But, I'm just thinking, like if you really had solid human beings that were doing the hypnotherapy for people like Leslie Ann Williams, maybe they should be doing some really good hypnotherapy in prisons.
Yeah, you're losing me, Tracy. I think that's a little bit too. That's more control than I'm willing to go along with.
I'm just trying to help.
Like educating, mental health education, just as much as we do physical health education. People will learn at their own pace, and they will apply it individually themselves. And children will innately start to learn whether things are normal for themselves or not, because society norms are bullshit. Individual norms is where it's at. And I think that if everybody was educated to those things, that we would be a better society for it.
And you know what? I'm claiming victory because I've been pushing this damn theory, this thing I want to do for months. And I finally got you on board.
Well, I've been agreeing with you, but there's a lot of things in place. And like Nina said before, it's literally going to take a deconstruction of the way of life we know as Americans and a complete reconstruction to kind of copy what they got going on in the Nordic places. Because I tell you, those Nordic people know where it's at. Healthy societies.
Well, you know what? We're on our way to deconstruction right now. So let's go to Star Wars, hon. Who are the people that are fighting against?
It's the Jedis against
No. It's the whole group of people. The rebellion.
The rebellion, yep.
See, we're going to deconstruct so badly. A rebellion is going to form, and so we're going to rebuild it. We're going to rebuild a utopia.
I get to have a lightsaber?
You can have a
Sweet.
lightsaber.
Okay, so we're officially all just losing our goddamn mind. Got it.
We've officially lost it. We officially lost it. But guess what, guys?
Here comes Santa Claus. Here comes Santa Claus.
Down Santa Claus Lane. Guess what, guys? Merry
You can't lose
Christmas.
it. It's almost Christmas. It's going to be Christmas. It's Christmas Eve now, right?
No, tomorrow is Christmas Eve, but by when the show airs, it will be Christmas Day.
Christmas Day. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry
Happy
Christmas.
What a delightful boy. You there. What day is it? Oh, they did it all in one night.
Did you eat a piece of rotten potato?
I love doing Scrooge quotes.
What is y'all's favorite Christmas movie?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Die Hard.
Well, we have our favorite classics.
We have our favorite.
But we have our favorite, and it's just been the past couple of years. It's Bad Mom's Christmas.
Yeah, but our classic Christmas movie is Scrooge with Albert Finney.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's the nicest thing that anyone's ever done for me. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Have you guys ever seen that?
That's a great one.
It's actually a great one. You guys should try to find it because it is actually the best Scrooge movie
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah. And I'm not usually particular fond of musicals, but then again, I've been watching this one since I was a kid. So we used to all sing along when I was a kid too.
And Todd introduced it to me a few years ago, and I freaking love it.
Yeah.
What about you guys?
A classic one would be Holiday Inn. That is the movie that Bing Crosby wrote White Christmas for, which is still the #1 best-selling song of all time.
Huh.
And then from my childhood, I would say Home Alone. And from now, I would probably say Elf.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Those are all good ones.
Yeah.
What about you, Christine?
And I know I'm one of those cheesy fuckers. I just like to watch all the Hallmark Christmas
Oh my
movies.
God. It's
They
like
all have
everything.
literally the same story,
All
just
the
different
same.
characters. They're all the same stories, and I'll just watch them. Like if I've never seen one before, I'll watch it. But I've never been a big rewatcher of movies. If I've seen it once, it's hard pressed that I can watch the whole movie over again. I just can't.
Except for that one that you made me watch. What is it called?
Oh, well, that's not a Christmas movie.
I know, but what is it called?
Enemy Mines.
Nobody else knows that movie. Do you know that movie?
Yes.
It's where there's an alien that got pregnant.
Wits.
Okay. The thing is I love Enemy Mines, and Enemy Mines actually, now that I'm an adult and I look back at it, because I've rewatched it as an adult, and it's still my favorite movie. The thing is that describes me and how I see how people should be, like to a T. Like no matter who you are, no matter where you're from, no matter what you do, no matter what your customs are, they can all be melded into one and everybody can get along. As long as everybody respects everybody and everybody's treated with equity. That movie sums up my personality to a T. So anybody who wants to know how fucking weird I am, go check out Enemy Mine.
I fell asleep.
Nina's like, nope.
Essentially, it's a white privileged spaceman from Earth, goes to a different planet and gets marooned there, and runs into an alien species, which is played by Gossett Jr. What's his name?
Louis Gossett Jr.
Gossett
with
Jr.
Dennis Quaid.
And he's the alien guy.
Yep.
And they're both guys, but I guess the alien guy's kind of like a lizard person.
Mm-hmm.
And
Anunnaki.
well, I don't know, but it's before that whole Anunnaki, well, I can't even say that word, Anunnaki thing came about. So it predates everybody talking about them. But he was like a lizard man. So lizards, they can self-reproduce. So they're kind of, what do you call that? When you're both hermaphrodite. He's kind of like a hermaphrodite, right? So he can self-impregnate himself. That's how they reproduced.
Weird.
So he was man and woman, kind of, on his, like, if we have to humanize it, right? Like, and in the movie, he explains that to, oh my God, who played the white guy?
Dennis Quaid.
Dennis Quaid.
I fell asleep. I don't know.
Dennis Quaid.
Yes, Dennis Quaid. Right. So he explains that to Dennis Quaid in part of the movie. So when he's giving birth, he dies while he's giving birth. So Dennis Quaid takes the baby out of his stomach and raises the baby.
I cried, by the way.
Some of my favorite scenes in there is when Dennis Quaid is raising the baby, they're playing football, like he made a football, and they're going back and forth, and he's like, I forget what he calls him, Papa or something like that. Like, uncle, whatever, uncle, yeah, why are my hands different from your hands? And like the way he tells them how his hands are different, like, oh, I love it. I love everything about that movie.
She loves it so much that we have it on DVD, and we had to hook up the DVD player when we were in the middle of a hurricane to watch this. And she's like, "This is the best movie ever. You gotta watch this."
You're going to watch it again and again.
What is going on here? So I'll have to watch it again, but I did fall asleep. I'm sorry.
Yeah, like you really have to analyze the movie. But if you analyze the movie, that's me in a nutshell. Everybody should just all get along, learn each other's ways of life, respect them, and
Respect the
amalgamate
differences. Absolutely.
Well, we're going to watch it tonight, probably, after we watch a Christmas movie.
Yeah, and A Christmas Story. That is a classic, super fun one, and that never gets old.
Oh, and the new one, too.
The third one,
Yeah, yeah.
because they did the
'Cause
second
Ralphie's all
one, and that
grown
one
up.
wasn't very good. But the third Christmas Story was actually really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked it. The fantasy, the daydreaming, and seeing all that stuff. That's always a favorite. And that god-awful pink bunny suit.
You'll shoot your eye out, kid.
yeah. All I ever think about when I think about the Christmas story is you're gonna shoot your eye out.
When they get their tongue stuck on the lamp.
Oh, outside the light pole.
we were watching that. We were watching that the other day, and I think this kid actually stuck his.
We think he really
he actually
did.
stuck his tongue to that frozen pole.
That shit looked real, and I did that. Did you? I don't know about you guys when you were kids, but my mom had one of those ice makers that were metal, and it had the handle on it, crank, crank, and I was like, I'm gonna do it, and I did. I stuck my tongue on there. I'm like, that sucker wouldn't come off. That's painful because then you rip off your taste buds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not good. Well, we should wrap it up, you guys. And so we all here at Malice wish everyone a safe, happy, beautiful holiday and Merry Christmas and Kwanzaa and I don't know, what are the other ones? All of them.
Hanukkah.
Chris Kwanzaa.
Happy Chris Kwanzaa, everyone.
Wait a second. Boxing Day's coming up, too.
Happy
Boxing
holidays.
Happy holidays,
Happy
everyone.
holidays.
Aw. All right, everybody. Enjoy your Christmas, and we will see you back on Friday for F-Bomb Friday.
That's right.
All right. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays.
Merry
Bye-bye.
Christmas.
Bye, guys.
Ho, ho, ho.